Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Rest is Lean, irregular podcast. Well, it's sort of every fortnight-ish. And me, John D, joined by my friends and colleagues. So I got Russell Watkins below me on my screen, and I got Alan Lothian to my left on my screen. Don't know where they're going to end up on your screen. And we like to get together and ramble, as many of our viewers have now pointed out, about the general
Yes,
topic
yeah.
of lean philosophy, life, and everything. But we do try and bring it back occasionally to improvements wherever we can for as many people as we can. So, what we all been up to over the last week? Al, what have you been up to?
So I had a really interesting meeting last Friday in
Yeah.
London with, do you know the ADS,
Yes.
Aerospace Defence?
Yeah.
So invited down there to discuss their strategy moving forward because they want to make some changes within the sector. One of the key things being moving from benchmarking and assessments, which a lot of their work has been,
Yep.
to actually, would you believe it, working on improvement activities. So I was all for that.
Yeah.
And we've just started a new contract with a logistics firm, which I'm really excited about because that's not an area where we've got huge amounts of expertise. I have done it in the past, but like I say, it's in the past. So it's great to come back to that and
Mm.
see what's changed over the past few years.
I'm going to go next. It's traditional to go last when you're introducing. I don't like tradition. So, what have I been up to? More work studies, assisting doing other people doing work studies, but this has been in laboratory environments in two different companies.
John, when you say assisting people, do you mean you've been holding their coffee?
Yeah, well, somebody's got to hand out the white gowns and test tubes. But no, basically,
But
I've been training up others to conduct work study in that particular type of environment, and with a few nice little tricks that suit what they're trying to achieve. So yeah, I've been in there. I've been watching. I've been recording stuff, but mainly I've been assisting others in getting it done, so that they're a bit more self-sufficient in that regard.
mm,
Um, I really, really like to do myself out of future work. It's kind of like a USP. Getting ready to do some work on data organization. You might look at it like workplace organization or 5S, but it's purely about data and being able to find it and justifying it. So that's going to be quite interesting. That's coming up in the near future. And I've got two separate businesses for which I'm setting up bespoke Greenbelt Six Sigma training at the moment. Russ, where have you been? What have you been up to?
around and about, in and out of four different clients. But the highlights are I've been working on some more fruit cages for the allotment,
Yay.
um,
Good man.
which I really enjoyed. I've been in the garage trying to crack sashimono, a bit of Japanese woodwork, and by my calculation, it'll be 26 years and 9 months until I become a master craftsman. I can't seem to cut straight. I've got, I've, I've got a fantastic Japanese saw, but the best thing you have to do is make your own jigs to begin with, a ripping
Yeah.
guide and a cross-cutting guide. The problem is you are so unskilled when you're making your jigs that your jigs are crap. So
Don't you have
I'm
to use
actually
the
very, very
saws to make the jigs that you're going to use to make your saw well?
but I'm actually very good at using a crap jig. So I'm cutting on the wonk, but it is on the wonk exactly in line with the jig. So anyway, I'm mastering that.
Japanese woodworking tools and our world of lean is
Yeah.
it's all about pull and never push. Pull saws, I
Yeah.
I was
believe,
going
are
to
the Japanese way.
The most useful thing I've done work-wise is I took two team leaders from one site last week to another site in the same business 50 miles away that they supply to meet the other team leader, who's their internal customer, who they've been supplying for 5 or so years, and they'd never met each other. And lo and
wow.
behold, what a really productive meeting. Who
Mm.
thought? Customer team leaders meeting their supplier team leaders. And here's the thing, they had no way of contacting each other in shift beyond the forklift driver in the supply site had the WhatsApp number of the team leader in the other site, so they would get messages and information third hand.
That's brilliant.
Okay,
It
guys.
is. It's absolutely
So
fantastic.
first thing is, thank you to everybody who's been commenting on our videos and watching our videos and podcasts and subscribing. It's very rewarding to see that we're not just talking to each other, although we would, is to be fair. Um, and a couple of mentions. All of us know a lady called Leanne who was kind enough to send us a message.
We
And she
do.
doesn't think we're crackpots at all. She thinks we were all chosen for our role because of our individuality. Lovely, love you, Leanne.
That sounds like a
I
bad.
know. I know what that really means, Leanne.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can crack the
He's
code.
a character.
We can crack the code. Um, it was EngageWorks was one of the subscribers who said we should be known as the Ramblers. Thank you very much.
So I
Um,
can pitch in there, John. John,
yeah,
just so you know. So Engage Works is a lovely gentleman called Pierre Dutoit, all the way
pure
from South
Pierre.
Africa. So Pierre, thank you for your comment.
Hi,
Thanks,
Pierre.
Pierre.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Simon Wells said he's had an epiphany, which I think is a good thing. Um, removing some manual handling and getting rid of reliance on an outside agency as an outcome from one of our podcasts. We'll have to work out which that one was and see if we can polish it.
Yeah, I was curious about that one.
That's
I
a
was
good
really
one, yeah.
curious about it. Maybe you can give us some more details later on. Yeah.
We've had a message from John Chapman, who I know. Hi, John. Yeah, we've worked
Hi, John.
before together in the past, and commenting on red tags and where you can't use them, etc. He reminds us that in his clean room environments, they use photographs as red tags. So don't write anything down, no paper. So
Hmm.
take a photograph of the thing, and the photograph itself can be emailed out and creates the record of the issue that needs
Can I ask a
resolving.
question?
Yeah,
So I'm interested. I am legitimately interested. A part of the purpose of the red tag is to stay there, of course, until the problem is resolved as a
yeah,
visual signal that there's a problem here unresolved. How do they square that circle in a clean room? Because the photo sits
yeah.
electronically hidden.
Well, in the particular scenario that John was describing, and John will correct us in the comments if I've misremembered this,
Hmm.
the photos get printed and stuck on a board that is outside of each of the clean room areas. So they are a little bit like fish tanks, you can stare in through the glass at the people doing the work.
Hmm.
But one of their team brief boards is on the outside of the clean room area. And at the end of the shift or before the shift, there might be a gathering there, certainly where other leaders and managers would gather to discuss the progress in the area. And I can see all of the images. And of course, there's always somebody in the area who can describe why is there an image of X, Y, Z. So yeah, it does have to be translated, but it does get around the fact that that is an environment where literally anything fibrous is banned. So anything that
Right.
can generate lint.
Could you use something
And
like a red colored magnet, John? As in, because again, again, a part of the benefit is being able to see the
mm,
measles where it's accumulating. Anyway, carry on, move
I
on.
think the
Hmm.
magnet idea has actually got some merit there. I
Hmm.
genuinely don't know if it would work on the grounds that the entire room is made of glass and stainless steel, and it's probably the good stainless steel, not like my toolbox is made of,
Yeah,
and magnets probably wouldn't stick.
not some
But
manky Ferris riddled pig iron.
but yeah, it's certainly something that could be explored.
Maybe some of the
And
listeners can give us help, give us some support as well, some
yeah, it's
suggestions.
nice.
Mm.
And Addy Upst, I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be pronounced, Addy, but Addy Upst was talking about one of the 5S discussions again, the workplace organisation, and saying he likes to paint and clean his house, even though it has no measurable benefit, just because it makes him happy and therefore healthier. And I'm wholeheartedly behind that. And one of the things I was taught is that you only have in the area the essential things for the task ahead, and an essential thing is joy. So something that brings you
Absolutely.
joy is perfectly legit. In fact, it's an essential item.
You're channeling Marie Kondo there, John.
Um, what we should have a little chat about now, folks, is the relative merits of deploying Japanese phrases, expressions, tool names when we're deploying lean, OPEX activity, call it what you like, in businesses. Where do we all sit? Do we think they should be used? Do we think we should never use them? Where's the value or not in them? Um, I think I'll be right in saying that Russell's probably the one with the most Japanese key phrases, as somebody who has made an effort at times to try to learn the subject. I don't think it's
Yeah.
been entirely successful, it has to be said.
No, no, but I have consulted to Japanese companies for 20 years, so it's kind of by osmosis got into me as well.
Yeah, but you're way ahead of us. So I think, starting with you, Russ, what do you think? The use of Japanese phrases, you do it a lot. It's sort of they trip from your tongue.
Well,
Merits,
uh,
failings.
I do it. Funny enough, I do it on this podcast, but I don't do it in businesses
Mm,
very often unless there is a warranted reason. So, um, actually, can I start with that word I used a minute ago? And it was purely accidental when I said Kamishibai, T
yeah.
card system. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a Japanese word that actually earns its place as being used. And I don't think the five Japanese S's, Seri, Seitan, um, Seiketsu, and Shitsuke, I don't think they do. But
Mm,
so Kamishibai, if you translate it into English, it means paper drama.
yeah.
And it comes from Japanese
Like shadow
bedtime story.
puppetry, isn't it?
Yes, and it comes from and more recently from Japanese bedtime reading, a story on one sheet of paper or one side that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, like all good
Hmm.
stories do. And Kamishibai, as in T cards, the principle being you should be able to fit everything you need to know on a TPM, total production maintenance, 1 point lesson on one side. The
Mm-hmm.
discipline is to slim it down. So I think the paper drama, one side of A4 for a 1 point lesson is actually a useful steer as opposed to T card or 1 point lesson. But I don't think anybody in the UK not working a Japanese business needs to know that the second S is Seitan.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it's context specific where there is something you can more deeply understand the purpose and the benefit of doing something by exploring the word.
Al, where do you stand on these? I think I know you may even be diametrically opposite to Russell, but
Well,
go for it.
I no, I wouldn't say I'm diametrically opposed. I just think trying to keep it simple is you use the mother tongue of where you're at.
Hmm.
In terms of getting it across, I think a lot of the Japanese terminology is actually quite commonplace now without actually thinking it. Like
Yeah,
a lot of um, foreign words make it into the English
yeah.
language, okay, without really knowing the background or the history behind the meaning of the word.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we were working at Industry Forum, we had Japanese master engineers, so we learned and dabbled. Russell is probably slightly different to ourselves, John,
He's
because
very
as
good.
Russell quite rightly says, he's been working directly with Japanese companies for
Yeah.
nearly 2 decades, or for over 2 decades. So it's naturally built in for him to learn that
Hmm.
the terminology. So I think it's case by case. But you know, I just have this thing of keeping it simple.
Mm,
Having said that, if I'm in another say Eastern Europe, we've done work in Kosovo and Macedonia, and
mm,
then we've used interpreters to try and put it in simple vocabulary for within their native language to make sure you can get the message across, because you're not there for a huge amount of time. It's not like
yeah.
the old masterclass days where you're there for weeks and months at a time, maybe
Mm,
over a period of time. Um, you've got to find ways to try and get the message across as quickly as possible and as
mm.
easy as possible. Um, the thing that really bugs me, all right, and at present company excluded, obviously,
Don't worry, you
is
can't offend
sometimes
us.
you do find people, Russell definitely is not one of these people, I can assure you, okay, is where it's almost as if like there's a points system. You'll go on some webinars and you'll go into companies and it's like, you could play like Japanese word bingo and they're just trying to rattle off as many words as possible. And yes, they probably know, the proper pronunciation, the background and the history around the meaning of the word. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, but you haven't got the faintest idea how to run an effective 5S activity in a company. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's where it makes a difference. It's not a case of I know as many Japanese words as possible, therefore I am the best. But I just see it so many times.
Yeah.
And the worst place for it is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
All right. And you get the odd conference now and again. I'm sure we've all seen them at some point or other.
Yeah.
But it just comes back to, I think it's just, who am I to rule? It's just my opinion. At the end of the day, just try and use it in context and use it where you feel it's applicable to get the message across, because we're trying to train people so they can make a difference in their own business or in their own livelihoods. So just keep it simple.
Yeah.
It's funny, Al, because I've got a client down in London, a very early stage manufacturer. And I must have spent a total of 18, 19 days there. Never said a word of Japanese because it wouldn't be right. It just wouldn't be right. And equally, I remember being in a plant in the US on a tour when I used to work for Collins and Aikman. And the lean person doing the tour, she pulled up somebody for saying Kanban instead of Kanban because she thought Kanban was the best thing. A, she thought that was the way you pronounce it, and I've no idea how you pronounce it. But B, she decided to put a barrier up to
exactly
the relationship by pulling somebody up on how they pronounce a Japanese word in the US. And you could see that person just shut us down. That's it. I'll go on a tour. I'll have my finger buff at the end, but I ain't asking you any more questions. So it was
exactly
learning dead.
Yeah.
Learning is the dead. Absolutely right, man. Absolutely right.
I think I lie in the middle of the argument. I think
it's quite interesting that job because as I'm looking at the screen, I am on my left, Russell's on my right, and you're slap bang in the middle. It's perfect.
I am
You've done that.
the fence.
You've planned it perfectly. Yeah.
Which I'm accused of now and again. No, genuinely, I think I'm in between. And the reason is almost universally, I would say, if it's an English speaking audience, speak English, i.e., all of your words, which is obviously good common sense. I do tend to say workplace organization more than I ever say 5S because it shortcuts having to explain what the S's are. I think that, like both of you have commented, there are lots of people scoring points by using the correct tool names and philosophies in Japanese. And that's great if you're having an academic conversation. And amongst us three, it might be really interesting to do that. But for any audience that's trying to learn and use and get benefit from these things, 90% of the time, it's not helping. However, I think there are some Japanese phrases for which there isn't a 1, 2, 3, even 7 word version in English. So it's just quicker and easier to say, I'm going to tell you about a thing. It's called this. We haven't given it any other name. I've invented it. As if it's not Japanese, it's Johnish. And I think Kanban, which is how I would pronounce it, and I would pronounce it like that because I know there's also a thing called bin ban and fax ban. And I'm not going to say it's a fax barn. Kind of loses something. Kanban, literal translation, card or cardboard signal, is a great shorthand for a topic which, if I didn't use the word Kanban, I'm going to teach you the subject now of how to use cardboard and many other things in various colours to visually cause pull systems to happen, replenishments to happen, and alert people to issues in the area.
That's right. It's a good shortcut.
What's the acronym for that, John? Oh,
It's
don't check, but it's Kanban.
but it's
Um,
it's it's a
it's
very
the
good shortcut
shorthand.
on the
Yeah,
assumption that people have this a common understanding of what you're talking about.
Yes.
yeah. But
So,
also, is that a good gauge when you're with a group, though? Sorry, John. It
yeah,
is if you try and keep away from the Japanese words, and there are, as you know, there's more common ones, as we say, that
yes,
are in our society than others. Um, but I tend to stay clear, but it's also a way of gauging the level of understanding within the team that you're in. Because all of
yeah,
a sudden, someone I think what Ross was alluding to is you then have the opportunity. Someone might say, "Well, is that not Kanban?"
mm,
Or is that not what when you say workplace organization, you start doing activity. Well, is that not 5S or
yeah,
5C as they've heard
yeah,
before? And the fact that they've come to you with that terminology, as opposed you
yeah.
not necessarily forcing it on them, but mentioning it.
Mm.
I just find that's a useful way of roughly gauging the level of understanding within the group that you're doing.
I agree, and
And you can
that's a
have
great way
you
of
have the dialogue
introducing
then,
the Japanese
correct?
phrase into a
And then you've got
session. Yeah.
the pull of learning then,
I mean, I've
as
got
opposed to,
one thing that I do, and I always do it, and it's counter to what I've just said to you. And that is, I always talk about, we go back to 5S all the time just because it's the simplest, most straightforward topic most people have heard of. But if I'm teaching people 5S, and it's usually a mixed group of I've never heard of it versus, yeah, we've done this 6 times before. Um, Part of my education in that is always to say, this started off as 5 Japanese words that begin with S.
Mm.
Why on earth would I tell them that? And I might even put an image on the screen with the Japanese words. It's just so that I can explain that the S words in English are rubbish, but
Yes, yes,
we've only
yes.
come up with them because the original words in Japanese began with the letter S. And we weren't put off by the fact there was no good word for the third S, so we put sweep and shine in there because they begin
Yeah.
with S.
yeah,
And completely mask the purpose of it. Shine
Yes.
to inspect.
It's not
correct.
about
Which spoils
housekeeping,
my
but now we're going to
piss,
do some
I have to
shite.
say.
Shite? What's
Oh,
shite?
That's a good point, John. It gives
Yeah.
context. Can I give you one other way that I think Japanese words can be useful if you use them
Yep.
selectively
mhm,
within Lean? And that's and I'll take an example of there's a word that I learned in the Japanese client called Waigaya.
mhm,
Waigaya, Waigaya. And Waigaya is it's an area on the shop floor where the management team sits. There's a cross-functional area, and there's anything can be said. There are no boundaries there. There's no hierarchy. It is a safe space for an operator to speak very bluntly and clearly to anybody above them.
Mm,
So it's almost like anchoring a safe space. Why Gaia is from why Gaia Gaia chit chat.
mm,
Now, that has no practical use to tell somebody that, except if you're with a company and there's a culture where people are afraid to speak up, um, and you feel there is a benefit to discussing this with a manager or maybe the director to open their mind to other ways of doing things or to diagnose the issue.
yeah.
mhm,
So sometimes it can be a potential key to unlock a different way of thinking.
mhm.
I'm
And
I'm a
also, Russ, there'll be people
huge,
who naturally have a natural acquisitive, they want to learn. Do you know what
yeah.
I mean? There's the pull
Yeah.
where they want to learn. They can put, a bit like yourself, because you've got a real strong affinity with Japan, right? And there are people in this world who have the same.
Mm.
And it's you don't know until you meet them. And if that's something that triggers them to want to learn more and do something different, then so be it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm,
I'm a big fan of using NLP, neuro linguistic programming.
mm,
Um, and you can dress it up however you like, but it's using small, innocent psychological tricks to help people make the right decisions. Simple as that. And one of them is called a stack statement. And that is Russell could go to his client and say, you lot should just talk openly, and you, Mr. Operator, should tell the boss that he's an idiot. Go. He could try that out.
Good luck.
And he could approach the operator with it, or he could approach the manager with it, and he'd have about the same success because Russell's come up with a harebrained idea, but it's a bit out there. A stack statement is any time you take something that you want to say, and instead of saying it, you quote somebody else. Now, it's not me saying it, it's Winston Churchill. Or, as I will often quote, and no doubt you guys will have your own exact same examples. I remember when my Japanese master engineer, Ryo-san, he was telling me about an experience like this. He said that he would get people together and have them talk about things really openly and were allowed to be completely blunt. He called it why guy, something or other. Anyway, I'm not sure we're even ready for this, guys. And 50% of people will go, well, you know, that sounds quite interesting. It's not John dreamt it up because I've stacked it, put it 2 places away from me. And sometimes just having it's called this in Japanese puts it 1 step away from you. And therefore, for some people, says, oh, other people try it. Maybe they've got
Gives
a
you-
good regard for the Japanese or the motor industry. And they go, oh, is that what Toyota do? Probably. It's Japanese, isn't it? That stacked statement will just get people to try stuff that they wouldn't otherwise try. So that can be very, very useful in that regard.
Can I broaden this slightly to Hindi and German?
Al, have you been rehearsing your Hindi?
Who are we to say no, Ross?
I don't think we'll be able to stop him. So let's go. Yeah.
I've just been thinking. It's just occurred to me. I don't think this is a Japanese thing. I think it's a thing. Whereas using other language is useful. So, in Hindi, for example, there's a word Jugaad, Jugaad, and Jugaad is a bit like Karakuri in Japanese. It is low cost innovation. You'll see a lot of if you go onto X or you go onto Insta or anything like that, TikTok. You put hashtag Jugaad in, you'll find lots of little low-cost inventions where people in India or Africa or generally resource-scarce areas have come up with a really, really nice little invention and a way of doing stuff.
Yes.
Now,
hacks.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, here's the thing. Spreading good ideas and good knowledge and thinking way is what we're all about. So the fact that you come up with a word that you can hashtag on social media and you can disseminate that knowledge, whether it's Japanese, Hindi, or Martian, is surely a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It triggers a different vein of thought and gets people to come at it from a different angle. Then it's worth it.
And gives people something to flock to because you couldn't put hashtag signal using cardboard or other materials, including a triangular shape to replenish and establish reorder points.
Yeah. The thing is, though, and I don't want to labor the point, is you get into a bigger field there with the regulation of said social media, because you can put the hashtag with whatever word you like, but then it's then opened to the masses. And there'll be some very, very good examples, and obviously downright crap ones. And it's difficult for people to separate the two because they don't know what they don't know. Back to our jihadi window again. They see it and accept it on social media as being fact.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're right, but you are right, Russell. I didn't know that word, so I'm glad you've shared that today because that's something that's my homework for today now. But I see little snippets of that on. Like Facebook Reels. I'm not allowed on TikTok. Not for any other reason. I just choose not to go onto it. But I should make that clear. But
too late.
It's too late. Yeah, you can edit that bit out, John. And that's the thing for me because it's so easy to see so many things. And I see those little hacks, but without the hashtag.
Yeah.
But now I've got a word that I can associate with that now.
To find it. Yeah.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with people attaching bad things to it because a part of the skill a part of self-reliance is learning to take what you see, filter it, try it yourself, and to be able to discern useful from not useful, good from bad.
Mhm.
So I think it helps to have a mixed bag of some of this stuff is just pants, the
Mm,
pants examples, and there are top-notch examples. Because if we just curated top-notch examples of stuff all the while, we end up getting a bit lazy, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right there, Ross. And the other thing is that you look at, and this is, you think about us as a nation, right? Some of the things you'd see on there, and you think, what a great idea that is. I think we would,
Yeah.
but you'll have a lot of people say, oh, you couldn't do that in this country. It's not safe. Yeah. You can see, I can just
Yeah, you're right.
picture it now. I
Well,
can picture it.
I
I'm
can give you an
picturing
example straight away because as
Oh.
Russell was giving us that example, Al, I was picturing something I watched on YouTube earlier today, which I
oh, go
think
on.
was somewhere in India. And it was a guy who was fitting truck tires despite having no tire changing equipment. He got a crowbar and he got a can of petrol. He managed to jam the tyre on. He
Was he
got a
using it?
mate to drive over the tyre to bop it onto the rim. And then to get the tyre to inflate hard enough to reseal, he just poured petrol in and then a long
And lit
stick
it.
with a rag and bang! The thing was nearly inflated. And you want to go,
So, yeah, but
ooh!
he's got he's
Neat,
got
neat
some
bus.
skill. It's probably not trainable, but he's got some skill, isn't he?
Hey, you got to know how long the stick needs to be, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Al, but John, it's things like you see them they're stuck in quicksand, or they're stuck in a muddy field and or a mud
Mm,
area, and they put a pole, they tie it around the tire laterally,
Yeah,
chain, and then it starts to get traction. And
mm.
we wouldn't do that on our beautiful roads. We wouldn't do it because we're not forced to. And that comes back to backs against the wall, backs against the water. And if you really want to get people being innovative, you take away resource so you
yes,
Which,
stress their mind.
and that's a great full circle, because isn't that the reason why it all started in the first place? Because there was an absolute need. They had
yeah,
to do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, back to
Mm,
Japan, end of World War II, MacArthur, etc.
mhm,
They're on their knees, but also very few natural resources. 90% plus of all their steel and oil and gas
mm,
and stuff they bring in. But
mm,
that is the Toyota way, in that if you've got a line that's an assembly line that's singing and you've got 14 people on there, you take one away and see what happens, and that person goes and works somewhere else,
yeah,
because you want to cause, you got to be careful here. You need to cause not not stress. You need to push push the comfortable window that the team leader
mhm.
is operating at, so that they think a bit deeper.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you get into stuff like, I remember I was told about MR50, and this could be wrong. There was a Toyota Hoshin push called MR50, Maintenance Reduction 50. And as a Hoshin goal, they didn't actually explain what it meant. It could have meant reduce a number of maintenance people by 50%. It could have meant reduce a number of unplanned visits by 50%.
yeah,
It could have
Mhm,
meant reduce the stock for spares by
mhm.
yes,
50%. Doesn't matter. You create that kind of unexplained objective, and
yeah,
then wonderful things can follow.
Yeah. Because people perceive it in a different manner, but they've got the culture of wanting to improve,
yeah,
Yes.
and they're finding ways of doing it. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the magic.
But nothing quite as motivational as saying you'll not be able to do this.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
the reason we all try to fold a piece of paper in half more than 7 times.
Which is not actually possible.
And I watched a guy again last week with a 3,000 ton press trying to do it. Oh, brilliant.
Oh, fill the paper.
Yeah, he'd gone to great
Laugh,
lengths.
laugh.
He'd gone to great lengths. And the press didn't break, but the folded paper did. It just turns into confetti. It just can't be done. Just to round off we started with sort of use of Japanese language, and I think we've done a good circle there. I don't think any of
Mhm.
us have come out saying you can't use it or you must use it. I mean, we've had quite a good debate. But I would like to apply the same to another language, and that is the three-letter acronym.
Oh,
And
yes.
I am socially brave. And what that means is if anybody quotes a three-letter acronym to me in any of the businesses I go in, I I've got no problem with going, oh, what does that stand for, please? And it's embarrassing usually for the business because people don't know.
No.
And I think that's very telling. And yes, there's going to be some three-letter acronyms, but people don't know what they stand for, but they know exactly what that means to do. Um, but there's going to be a lot of people in that room who just go, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," and just nod along.
Or they're
It's a
happy you've
foreign
asked a question
language.
because someone didn't know and weren't
Yeah.
prepared to ask.
Yes.
Yeah. Very quick, I had a really funny story about that, John. So when I first started working for Eton, in my first day, you get your staff handbook. At the back of the staff handbook is a glossary of three-letter acronyms that are used at Eton, and there's about 111.
Jeez.
Seriously, because obviously you've got different. It's a global business, but you've
Yeah.
got it's not just Eton Global. You've got Eton Global ones, then
Yeah.
you've got regional ones, and then you've got sectorial ones.
And translated
Um,
three-letter
so
acronyms.
And when you're moving across, they obviously have it so you've got it to hand if you're in
Yeah.
a different part of the world or a different sector. So you've got it.
What's
There you
your
go.
favorite?
How much time do they really take?
Mine's a four letter. Mine's a four letter JFDI.
Okay. John, have you got a favorite?
A favorite three-letter acronym? Yeah.
Yeah.
WWW,
Yeah.
which is for World Wide Web.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
takes more syllables and more time to say www than it takes to say World Wide Web.
Yeah. It's a good one. Funnily enough, to take it full circle again, double loop, I'm pretty certain in Japanese, we is wari wari wa.
Wadi wadi waha.
We, as
Is
in we.
we as in us.
And now I think it's time for us to go over to Russ for our Japanese word of the week.
Okay, so I'm gonna say kankotsu.
You did?
Now, kankotsu is really interesting. It's actually a two-part word, kan and kotsu. It rough translation is knack, but it's so much more than that. And think knack in terms of an operator following an SOP. There are little, key points: safety, then quality, then ease.
Yeah.
The capture those ease points helps to do the job, and you can train them to other people and get the benefit across other people. Well, kankotsu is a way of taking people up a learning curve faster. Kan means five senses, kotsu means method. And it's observing and breaking down an operation and looking for the kan where they're doing something that is knacky.
Yeah.
And then kotsu is the method you use to train it out. And what you find is there is something called Mr. Disc. There are games you can play that take knack to do them. And if you don't tell people, if you let people just have a go, they perform very lowly and there's a scatter to their performance. If you then let them have another go, their performance improves, but the range stays similar in their cycle times, if you know what I mean. So it's moved
Yeah.
from there to there.
Mm-hmm.
If you then introduce the knack, the kan codified, written down, you get a more rapid progression up the learning curve, but also you get a shrinking of the range of the outcome, cycle time and quality.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is a Japanese word useful there? Well, if you just think about knack, you end up just trying to watch and ask people what they do that makes it easier, and you might write it in the SOP. But if you think about kankotsu, you're thinking about the five senses and a method to capture it and train it.
Nice one.
Superb. I've definitely learned something there. Thank you very much, Russell.
Thanks for that,
And
Russ.
look forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're going to wrap this one here, and hopefully you're all inspired to talk a little bit in your businesses about the language you use, three-letter acronyms included. And if you want to comment on our videos, go below the video and do that. If you listen on a podcast and you want to send us a message, then use our email address. Al, what's our email address?
Oh, the rest is lean at gmail.com.
It's like he was ready for it.
Hang on,
And
it's ooh, the rest is lean.
ooh, the rest is lean.
Ooh, the rest is lean. How many O's in that and how many H's?
I guess it was across between John Inman and was it John Inman and Paul O'Grady or something, wasn't it?
You
Excellent.
brought out my favorite acronym, FFS. Go on, John, wrap up.
We're going now, boys and girls, and we'll see you all
Oh,
again
dear.
real soon. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
See you soon, guys. All the best.
Bye.